This a long one, y'all. This a long one. Grab your coffee, grab your tea, grab your chips, put your headphones in. This a long one. Okay, I think we are ready to talk about this. Civil rights organizations emphasize that the second Trump administration is using executive orders and policy changes to, one, shut down or reverse government-wide racial equality efforts, two, narrow what counts as discrimination in the law, especially by weakening protections against policies that seem neutral but hit certain groups much harder than others. I'm sure we can all pretty much figure out which groups those are. And three, they are making voting, housing, and public benefits harder to access for communities of color, including Black communities. Access to health care, access to SNAP benefits, housing assistance, access to jobs. So with that said, I wanted to bring a few of those policy changes, a few of those executive orders to your attention so you can have an idea of what it is that they are doing. So let's talk about it, shall we? I've got my notes loaded into the teleprompter, so let's get into it, shall we? So on day one, the very first thing that Donald Trump set out to do was revoke President Biden's racial equality orders. On day one, Donald Trump issued an executive order 13985 and executive order 14091. Biden's racial equity orders that he had put in place, they required every federal agency to identify and fix barriers that underserved communities, including the Black community, my community, face when trying to access federal programs. And to build, he wanted them to build equity teams to push out this work. And so Donald Trump revoking that tells agencies to terminate equity action plans, shut down environmental justice and equity offices where possible, and stop that systemic equity work that Joe Biden tried to put into place. Practically, it makes it harder for Black communities to challenge biased benefit systems, access targeted investments, and push agencies to address historic discrimination. The next thing that Donald Trump did was he moved to systematically attack DEI across the federal government, and then that rippled out into corporate America. He instituted an executive order terminating DEI across the federal government. It directed federal agencies to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, equity-related grants, and affirmative measures in hiring and contracting, framing them as illegal discrimination. It chilled federal contractors and private employers from maintaining DEI initiatives under threat of investigation or loss of contracts, which disproportionately harms Black workers who gained opportunities through such programs. This then shifts enforcement priorities towards protecting reverse discrimination, claims often by white plaintiffs, racist, white supremacists, rather than systemic discrimination against Black people. It is the reason why Target rolled back their DEI programs. And they were the first, I believe they were one of the first to do it, which is why Black people got activated and immediately started to boycott Target. But Target wasn't the only one. We all know that. We know that other corporations followed suit and rolled back a lot of their DEI programs. McDonald's was one. All of news media is another. I believe Google dismantled their DEI programs. All of them basically did that. The two that I know that have stood firm is Costco, well, it's three, that have stood firm and reaffirmed their DEI programs is Ulta Cosmetics, Macy's, and Costco. They tried real hard to get Costco to roll back their DEI programs, and Costco was like, fuck you. You don't control me. And as a result of all of those corporations rolling back DEI programs, as a result of DEI programs being rolled back across the federal government, over 300,000 Black women are unemployed. They've been pushed out of their positions, they've been forced to resign, or they've been fired. I believe we're over 400,000 now. I'm not for sure, but I know for sure it's over 300,000. And this is just Black women. The next executive order that Donald Trump put into place was the Restoring Equality of Opportunity and Meritocracy Executive Order. Executive Order 14281. That executive order was put into place to reframe civil rights enforcements around colorblind merit, targeting affirmative outreach goals and other equality tools under the Civil Rights Act. This is their words, okay? But what it does is it directs agencies to treat many race-conscious or race-aware efforts to expand access, like scholarship, outreach, benchmarks, as suspect or discriminatory, and it pressures agencies and contractors to drop such practices because Black communities have relied on those tools to counter long-term exclusion in housing, employment, and education. This order undercuts practical pathways to equal opportunity while claiming to defend equality. Yeah, that's what Donald Trump did. Anything to slow the progress of Black people and the Black community, anything that lowers Black people and the Black community as a whole, that's what Donald Trump's target was with these executive orders. But wait, there's more. I couldn't find the executive order number for this. And so me and Alfred just worked based from memory. And so what Donald Trump did was he instituted an executive order instructing agencies to roll back use of the disparate impact standard across housing, lending, employment, education, and healthcare. For decades, civil rights agencies have used disparate impact to attack policies that look neutral on paper, but produce unjustified, racially skewed outcomes. For example, screening rules that disproportionately lock Black renters out of housing, right? Trump's executive order tells agencies to narrow or drop these certain types of tools to the maximum degree, making it far harder to challenge systemic discrimination that targets Black people through proxies like credit score cutoffs, criminal history bans, or zip code-based rules, redlining. The biggest one of all, we all know Donald Trump and his racist minions around him are trying desperately to find a way of how they can roll back voting rights for Black people. But remember, this was a big thing. Donald Trump put into place an executive order requiring proof of citizenship for anybody who is choosing to register to vote. You have to prove that you have a right to be in this country, right? Your passport, your birth certificate, your driver's license, your real ID. Yeah, you have to show solid proof when attempting to register to vote. And that just doesn't affect the Black community. That also affects people of color, the different African communities, the Nigerian community, the Somalian community, the Muslim community out there in Dearborn, the Cuban community down there in Florida, the Haitian community down there in Florida and over in Ohio. Yeah, when you go to register to vote, you have to prove that you are a citizen of these United States. And when it comes to this topic, you get a lot of disingenuous people, right? Who will say, well, what's the problem? Why can't you get ID to prove that you are here legally or that you can vote legally? It's disingenuous because we all know all of the social factors and the social issues that go into getting the proper ID to vote, right? Not everybody lives on a bus line. Not everybody can just hop in a car to run down to the local DMV office to get a copy of their driver's license, right? And Republicans know that. This is why they put driver's license bureaus, the different locations. They're usually way out in the middle of nowhere. They're not on a bus line. They don't make it easy for low-income people to be able to get to the driver's license bureau. Think about your great-great-grand that was born in 1940 and she's still living on this side of the earth. How would you go about getting a copy of her birth certificate when they didn't give birth certificates to Black people way back then? Why? Because we were 1/3 of a human, right? It's very difficult to backtrack to a hospital to get a copy of your birth certificate, right? And you need your birth certificate in order to get your driver's license or passport, right? And Republicans know this. This is why they instituted this type of restriction policy. These policies disadvantage a lot of brown people and people of color. Just those two instances alone. You lose your driver's license. For a lot of us, that extra $25, $30 to get a replacement license, that $25, $30 is what? Gas for the week. It's for you to get a few items at the grocery store so you don't fucking starve, right? So Republicans know what they're doing. These things may seem small to the person who doesn't live this life, but they are huge to brown people and Black people, marginalized communities. But there's more. Donald Trump's executive order requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote and the other restrictive measures that he put into place. Yeah, civil rights groups describe this as designed to silence millions of voters. Yes, it's a form of voter suppression with especially harsh impact on Black, Latino, Native, and disabled voters who are less likely to have the required documents and more likely to be purged or blocked. By layering new paperwork and bureaucracy onto registration and voting, the order amplifies existing racial disparities in ID access and bureaucratic burdens, undermining Black political power. That's what that executive order does. And they're still looking for other ways in order to suppress the black vote. They don't want to suppress it. They want to eliminate black people from being able to vote in this country, period. There's more. Donald Trump also rolled back a lot of environmental protections that will go to disproportionately affect the black community. Remember, he dismantled the Environmental Justice Office or something, the EPA. The EPA. Remember earlier we talked about how Donald Trump implemented rolling back DEI programs across the federal government, and then it leaked on over into corporate America, right? Well, in those DEI and equity rollbacks, Donald Trump directed OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, and other agencies to terminate environmental justice offices and positions to the maximum extent allowed by the law. Why? Those environmental justice offices focus on communities facing concentrated pollution and climate risk, which in many cities and corridors are predominantly black neighborhoods. Eliminating those offices removes institutional capacity to track racialized pollution patterns enforced against discriminatory siting or permitting, and channel cleanup funds to place where black residents bear disproportionate health burdens. You know, all of those warehouses that they love to build in our communities, and then those warehouses and those factories send out pollutants in the air. Isn't there something going on right now with Elon Musk poisoning a black community because he put his AI factories close to a black community? Right now here in DeKalb County, I don't know whose AI factory this is, but they are trying to put an AI factory in the middle of a thriving black community, middle-class black community here in DeKalb County. And residents are furious because those factories, that AI plant, it will spike the cost of water, it will spike the cost of electricity in those neighborhoods. And that doesn't even talk about how those pollutants will leak out into the air and affect the people living within that community. I'm in DeKalb County. So yeah. Remember the other day I came in and talked about how Del Monte has had some real issues with their canned goods. The can says green beans, you open it up, you got beets. The can says ocean spray, you open it up, it's nothing but water. That's as a result of all of those FDA and environmental protections that Donald Trump has rolled back at the urging of these corporations. They don't want to be regulated. The immigration issues going on, all of that factors into this as well. And it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And of course, we cannot forget what he's doing with immigration, all of the executive orders and policies that he's implemented regarding immigration and deportation comes directly from Project 2025. Donald Trump has implemented a whole slew of different actions that align with Project 2025. And they are designed to accelerate mass deportation, expand detention, and ease arrests anywhere in the country. Ease any restrictions or barriers that will stop them from being able to arrest people all willy-nilly. We've been watching it. The whole synopsis is to formally frame immigration. And once he started putting out those executive orders, they started moving at record speed because they want to try to get as many immigrants out of this country as they possibly can before the courts stop them. And while he's formally framing this as immigration control, these measures have had major impacts on Black immigrants. We just saw he rolled back the TPS status for Haitians, right? The Caribbean, Africa, Somalians, right? And it's a mixed status of Black families all across the United States. He's expanded raids and detentions and policing, profiling, surveillance, infrastructures that have historically harmed Black communities is what he is using. And he's gotten the okay from the Supreme Court to racially profile immigrants. So if an ICE agent looks at somebody and says, oh, he looks like a Mexican, he looks like a Colombian, he looks like a Dominican, I'm going to stop him. But remember, long before all of this was put into place, I did a video telling you how they had implemented laws here in the state of Georgia, in the state of Texas, that followed what they were doing in the state of Florida. Long before the election, I told y'all this is what they were doing. I told y'all to get y'all papers in order. Remember, I told y'all we are back to slave patrol days when back in the day when a white man could stop a Black man in the street and ask him what was he doing here, and that Black person would have to prove that they had a right to be where they were. But they either had a letter from the master. They had a letter for the master, or master was somewhere at another store while he sent his slave to do something at another store. They had to prove they had a reason to be where they were. And here we are again. You got to have your ID. You got to have your birth certificate. And it can't be just any ID. Got to be a real ID. Special type of ID. Birth certificate. You got to prove that you are a legal citizen and have a right to be here. And even in those cases, they are shipping people out of here. And it comes straight from Project 2025. Project 2025 was the blueprint. And they put it out there for all of us to see. They told us what they were going to do. Project 2025 was them envisioning shutting down the federal DEIA offices, stopping civil rights data collection, and using racial classifications and reorienting the EEOC to prioritize claims by white men over systemic discrimination claims brought by Black workers. Without race disaggregated data and robust enforcement, it becomes far harder to prove and remedy discrimination in pay, hiring, housing, policing, and it solely is to target Black communities. Yeah. And so for all of you who are out there who said, one, that both parties are the same, or two, voting is not going to do anything, or three, you decided to vote third party or not vote at all, this is what you helped to usher in. All of what our ancestors built, all of the hard work that they were able to get into legit policy that helped to uplift the Black community, y'all pissed it away in one election. One election. Donald Trump did all of this in less than a year. less than a year. I need for my people to understand your vote is your power. I know my people gets frustrated with the system. I know that things move slow when it comes to the Black community, but that is by design. It's by design by those white supremacist demons that are working to slow down the progress of the growth of the Black community. And instead of fighting back against those white demons, y'all chose to not fight at all. Your vote is powerful. That is why they work so hard to try to take it away from you. They've been trying to take away your vote, your voice for years, for decades. They've been trying to do it. And in the past, for as racist as a lot of these politicians are, because just like they're racist on the Republican side, there's racists on the Democrat side. I'm not disillusioned. I'm clear. But unfortunately, we are working within a system, especially now, who's going to cause the most harm and who's going to cause the least harm. And we have to use our vote, our power, our voice to get behind the person that is going to cause the least harm. Our vote is our weapon. It's our weapon. This is why they partner up with Tunisians who get out and talk negatively about the Black community. They want you to feel super frustrated with the system so that you won't participate in the system. That's why they pay the Candace Owens. That's why they pay the Hodge twins. That's why they pay the Terrence Robinsons. That is why they pay these Tunisians. What's his name? Officer Tatum. That's why they get paid. That's why their voices get uplifted. They want you to be so frustrated and confused with the system so that you will bow out of the system. We've lost so much in these past 11 months. And yet, we have never been more united. I love my Black people. I was mad with y'all. But I recognize that right in this moment, we have never been more united. We have never been more clear. Because for as much as Donald Trump has done, there's so much more that he and his white demons wanted to do that they weren't able to get done. So much so that the monsters that are working behind the scenes, they are afraid. They are afraid, and they're talking about leaving the country because they know they've broken some laws. They want to leave the country because for all that they have done, they anticipated being a whole lot further. There are some things that they just knew they were going to be able to do that they have not been able to do. Like being able to agitate Black people, to antagonize them to get out into the streets so that they can impose martial law. Yeah, they were hoping that they were going to be able to do that. But black people have been on one accord. It's like after the election, whether my black people voted or not, it's like we telepathically got on the same page. Don't know why, don't know the rhyme, don't know the reason, but we all telepathically got on the same page, and we were like, y'all got it. We're going to focus on us. We're going to try to get our houses in order. We're going to focus on our community. Y'all got it. We want nothing to do with y'all for the next 4 years. We're going to rest. We're going to work on our mental health. We're going to fortify our gardens. We're going to stock up our pantries. Yeah, we're going to let y'all do whatever it is that y'all do. Yeah, that's what we ain't getting out in the streets. We ain't protesting. We're not going to let you use us to fight a battle for you. We could have easily won this battle in November of 2024 with just a check in the voting booth. The ancestors told us to sit our ass down. It's like peace be still came over my community. And I love that for us. I love that for us. I've been hearing a lot about the 400-year curse came to an end. 2019? I could be wrong. Y'all put the date. The 400-year curse that was put onto the black community came to an end. And now there's a reset happening. And that 400-year curse is now being sent back to the originator. And who do you think the originator is? Yeah, it's them. It is why a lot of things that I truly believe, it is why a lot of things that they are trying to do, they just can't get it done. All of these different mishaps and these different missteps, all of the people who are being used to sue this federal government to slow them down. Yeah, this isn't just politics, what's going on right now. I see a lot of spiritual warfare going on right now. Everything that they try to do, it is debunked. And the truth is put out there. People are waking up. And they are seeing real clear. That country over there, it's not real. There's a reason why I call it that. There's a reason why I call it, it's not real. A lot of people waking up to that country over there and realizing how that country and their political action packs, it's how they've been moving the puppet strings to control our government. That is probably one of the biggest reasons why black people have been frustrated with the system, because they've been buying our politicians. And that contract requires them to put it's not real first instead of America. For a lot of our politicians, they haven't been putting America first. It is the reason why so many black people in the black community have started to see how other POC communities really feel about us. That veil is lifting. The awakening is happening. That curse is being sent back to sender. It is why black people are turning inward. And it is why that so many of these POC communities are finding themselves in certain situations now. You've sided with white supremacy for so long. Baby, I could go on and on about this, but my new glasses are in, so I'm heading out to the mall to pick up my new glasses. And yeah, Black people, stay strong. Stay strong. 2026 will soon be here, and we must use the power that we have if we're still able to do so, because we're still battling the demons. They are still working to take away our one weapon that can really take them down, and that is our right to vote. As long as we have that right, we have a weapon in our hands. And they are working diligently to try to disarm us. I feel like I'm rambling. All right, y'all. That's all I got. This was a long one. Okay, I'll see y'all later.